Testing the sound, 1, 2, 3. Hi everyone, Martha and Rachel, you're getting a good reception. Are you? So far? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Well, the last session on self-realization, unfortunately, it was lost. The video was lost by a mistake in how I recorded. So today I took extra care to avoid the problems that I had before. So it looks like at least you are getting a good reception this time. Now I just changed a little bit the audio settings, and I would like to double check with you and confirm that you are getting a good volume and also you are getting a good video. Please, if you can confirm it again. Thank you. Okay, everyone, it's 7 o'clock. Ready?
Hello.
Hi. Come up.
Roy's not coming.
Roy's not coming?
He was not feeling good this morning.
He was not feeling good.
No, he thought he was getting the flu or something.
Oh.
So he decided he was up and about a bit during the day, but he decided he wasn't, he's going to take it easy and.
Right.
Right. You said I look my ring hair. Yeah. The question is where to wear.
I was going to ask you what? No. What? Your son. Is he going to be playing any Christmas things before Christmas or anything?
He plays at a church in Long Beach if you'd like to go see him there.
Oh.
He forbids us to see him because he's on a television thing. But
I know. We got plenty going on.
Okay, great. So we will start in a moment. Ready?
are you ready?
Okay, hi.
Tonight I'm going to be on time. This time I'm late at the start. So funny because in LA, everybody they'll say a certain time, but they start a half hour later, 20 minutes later, So on time is good.
Yes, it is.
Even though there's no such thing as time.
No.
Sorry?
I said even though there's no such thing as time.
That's right. It's just a practical convention in regard to the movement of the sun, right?
movement of the sun?
Yeah, the time is completely linked to the movement of the sun, which the sun is not moving. Actually, the earth is moving, right?
Right.
So we're transforming movement into something abstract, which is time. Movement is real, but time is an illusion.
What is real?
Movement has some reality, some relative reality, right? Yes, and it's happening. It's always happening in the now. So we're converting a relative reality, which is movement in the now, into an abstraction which we call time, but it's obviously an abstraction. It's not real because there's just this now, and it's always now. It's impossible that there could be past or future, right?
So what was yesterday? Did it ever happen?
Whatever you whenever you refer to yesterday, see is you're referring to a memory, right? Because in the here and now there is just that memory. It's a memory imprinted, but aside from the memory, there is nothing else. In the now, the past is not here. So you could talk from an abstraction perspective that yesterday happened and so on, but actually it's not here. You cannot know if it happened or it didn't. The only thing you can know is that there are some memories in the hard drive, right, of the brain, and they have a relative reality. They will fade out.
I have a problem with anything that's not right here. Like even my house right now, or another country, or New York City. I can't conceive it. All I conceive is what I see right here. I can't believe any of that's actually happening right now. Does that make sense?
Right, because if it's not here and your senses are not capturing the information, then the only way to assert that exists is through imagination, through thinking. Without thinking, you could not assert that your house exists, right? So it's memory and thinking are creating that virtual reality.
No, you were doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's not.
Thanks,
no,
Gianna.
it's not cold.
You're welcome.
You know what I mean, though?
It's the same with space. If and separation, the only way we can separate is through thought. So by giving names to things, then we create a virtual separation in our heads, and then we believe in the separation, but it's a belief only based on thoughts and names, because our whole language is based on names, or names of which we call nouns, name of objects, or names to actions and movement, which we call verbs, and name of characteristics and qualities that we call adjectives, but they are all names. Mm-hmm. So a whole language, is just names, naming things. And you remove the naming, you're left without language. And you remove the language, and you're left with reality. You are left with the self.
I wonder how a blind person, like if they see the world very differently, obviously. You know?
Yeah, blind people. If you remove any of the senses, probably you have a different perception to a degree. Okay, so let's have a little meditation, and then we go into our subject for today, which is about. It's about how to play the games of life, but from a non-dual perspective. We are forced, in fact, to play the games of life. We We cannot really, we can choose to some degree, but even the choosing is an illusion. But anyway, just the very fact that you're existing in a physical body makes you play the game of survival, for example, right? Just taking care of the body is a game. You succeed at it until you don't. Then the body is gone. If you stop taking care of the body, just something as trivial as showering, eventually your body dies. It rottens, right? Clean your teeth. You play the game of health every night when you brush your teeth and floss your teeth. If you stop doing it, you have to pay a visit to the dentist. If you don't do that either, then you will have to pull your teeth, right? So we're playing the game of health and survival all the time because we are in a physical body, whether you're awakened or you're not. Which is a way to say it only because actually you don't wake up. There is awakening, but it's not you that wake up. So we are forced to play certain games. Because we are in a physical body, we play the game of pleasure and pain. We look for pleasure. We enjoy food, and we enjoy little pleasures, the little pleasures of the senses. That is a game too. We can play it intelligently and do not go into excesses, for example. Or we can play it in a stupid way and really hurt the body, and we get in troubles with the body. So we're kind of forced. We don't have a choice about playing the games of life or not. We have to. And if you're in a couple relationship, you may wake up, but there you are in a couple relationship. That's a game, right? And then the most important game is your vocation and your service to others. The minute you enter into that game, which everybody is in that game in one way or another, you also are dealing with the challenges of materializing or manifesting that type of service for others. And that will depend on your vocation, but everyone practically has to play that game. Otherwise, you're going to do something that you hate, right? And that will not give you real joy. And then it will be just for the sake of keeping a job and surviving, and it will be painful. So we are stuck in a way, in the sense that we have to play the games of life. You can choose to go to a monastery, and then many of these games will go, right? You will not play the game of the couple relationship or the game of sexuality. You will not play the game of accumulating money or anything like that. But you will have to play the game of survival anyway. You have to brush your teeth at night, and you will have to serve the community in one way or another. So even the monk and the nun, they are stuck in playing the games of life. So what we will discuss today is how to play these games in a way that is more fulfilling and less stressful and more successful too. But not from a metaphysical perspective, because that requires to reinforce the I thought or the I principle, but from a non-dual perspective, which is something that rarely is mentioned by teachers, because the emphasis in Advaita is in waking up, but then you are on your own. You wake up and it's not the end. You got it. But now you have to figure it out, how to navigate a new terrain. And not that many teachers are focused into how to navigate the path or the terrain after awakening, which is called embodiment, right? Embodying the awakening so that you can stay in the awakened state 24/7. Okay, let's begin with a meditation, and so that we get connected with our intuition in a deeper way, and makes us intuition makes us receptive. And intuition wakes up by quieting the mind. It's as simple as that, right? So let us start by closing our eyes and taking 3 deep breaths. Okay, let us inhale and exhale, relaxing. Allow your whole body to relax from head to toe. Now inhale again and exhale, relaxing. And once more, inhale deeply and exhale, relaxing the whole body from head to toe. Let us relax the body part by part. So please focus on your feet for a moment and allow your feet to relax. Now focus on your ankles and allow your ankles to let go and relax. Bring the attention to your calves and allow your calves to let go and relax. Consciously relax your knees. Relax your thighs. Relax your buttocks. Relax your abdomen and pelvis. Consciously relax your stomach. And relax your chest. Relax now your hands, arms, and shoulders. And allow your whole back to relax from neck to the coccyx. Relax now your neck, front, back, and both sides. Relax now your jaw and mouth and lips. Relax your nose and cheeks. Relax now your eyes and eyelids. Picture your eyes like floating in a sea of tranquility. Relax now your eyebrows and forehead, so that now your whole face is completely and deeply relaxed. Relax your scalp and ears, so that now your whole head is completely relaxed. And your whole body is completely relaxed. Now forget the body, forget the mind, forget all thoughts, and simply rest as pure awareness, prior to thought, prior to the body. Simply rest as open, blissful awareness. It's very easy, you simply forget all objects of thought or sensations and rest as pure awareness. Resting as open awareness is meditation. Meditation is to withdraw the attention from the objects of sensation and also from the thought's object, both. And then attention or awareness begins to rest on itself, and that's meditation. Even a little bit, you don't need to go too deep. Even a little bit of resting as awareness creates a peace or even bliss. It's extremely important to learn this skill because meditation is something that we can do during the day, anytime, any moment, and anywhere. Meditation is not something that we do on the cushion or sitting. It's something that you can do and hopefully will do anywhere, anytime, until it becomes a reality 24/7, which is an ideal. It takes a lot of time to get there. Because the mind is very seductive. It pulls us back into thought. But as we begin to understand that in beingness or prior to thought or resting as pure awareness, there is more bliss, more happiness, and even more success, as we will discuss today, then you gradually lose the addiction to thought. And it's really an addiction. The addiction to thinking. And then all revelations come by themselves. The most important revelation is when you realize that the I is actually a thought. That you cannot be a thought, that this I that you thought you were is just a thought that comes and goes, but you are always here as pure awareness. That's the greatest revelation. It's called awakening. And then many others come later. But this is particularly important, and that's why it has been called awakening. So whether you have awakened or not, you are bound to play some of the games of life, as I was saying a moment ago. And we learn by steps how to play these games. And I know that you are already quite skillful, as you will see. The first thing we learn, and perhaps this you learned it long ago, is to do not give up easily. There is a difference between do not giving up and becoming stubborn. We need to learn also that difference. When something is not meant to be, and we insist and insist, then we have become stubborn. But to materialize anything that is of some value, we need to persist. And you probably have already learned this lesson incarnations ago. your mind-body organism has already acquired the capacity, the ability to persist when the goal you're pursuing is worthwhile. But if we give up easily, we cannot materialize anything of value or great value. In the Buddhist tradition, the Bodhisattva relinquished enlightenment to come here and to help others become free from suffering. But the Bodhisattva not only has to attain enlightenment, then be willing to give it up and come here, has to know how to do the work to be able to help others. So some of you may be in that situation that you want to do something for others. So you probably learned a long time ago that to do something valuable, you need to persist. If you give up easily, you will never be a good bodhisattva. Neither you will be able to materialize your worthwhile dreams. The second thing we learned, and probably you learned this long ago too, is to think that within reason everything is possible. If we are naysayers and our mind is constantly saying, no, it's not possible, no, it's not possible, that really limits your capacity to play the games of life successfully. So at some point, you learn, and hopefully it's already very well cemented in your personality, in your mind-body organism, you learn not only to do not give up easily, but also that when you have a plan, when you create an idea that is worthwhile pursuing it, you don't immediately kill it with the thought, oh no, that's impossible, right? And on the contrary, you have learned that everything is possible. I'm talking within reason, right? Why I'm adding this? Because let's say if I wanted to become the President of the United States, it would be impossible because I was not born in this country, right? So it has to be within reason. You wanted to be the king of the world or the queen of the world and have everyone at your feet. It's totally unreasonable, right? So it has to be within reason. But within reason, we need to think that everything is possible. The third thing, and here is where you need to attain a balance between the first point that says do not give up easily, and the third one that says, the third principle says, learn to embrace winning or losing, both. This is a tricky thing because being okay losing is an advanced practice. Now it's not simple. It's obviously you have a preference. You are working to attain or create something or make a difference. But at the same time, you need to have enough detachment so that you will not play this game at the expense of your peace, because your peace is more important than the game. So at some level, you need to be willing, or I won't say willing, but I would say be okay with the fact that you may lose the game, because it's just a game. If you have been connected from the beginning with the divine intention, likely you will win. But by allowing some space for the possibility that, well, maybe it's not going to happen, keeps your peace and allows you to play the game without compromising your divine peace. And when you keep your peace, then something else happens. And it is that you can, from that peace, you can move into open awareness, rest as open awareness, or you could call it beingness before thinking what you are. Thinking is an overlay of what you are, because you just are. You are first, and then thinking comes later. So you remove thinking, what is left is beingness. So if you are resting as open awareness, or call it beingness, no mind, what happens is that you are fulfilling a law of the universe that is that the power that is in beingness is by an order of magnitude more than the power that is in thinking or even doing. So I sent an email some time ago with a video from an individual that goes into details about this. And he's absolutely right. He says, in thinking there is more power than in doing by an order of magnitude, meaning it can be 10 times more power or 100 times to fulfill a game, to win a game. In beingness, quiet mind, playing the game with a quiet mind, there is more power by an order of magnitude than in thinking. So when you play the games of life, if you are able to stay in beingness or resting as open awareness, no mind, you have at your disposal an enormous amount of power. And the strange thing is that that power is not yours, but it's there. And it doesn't require any straining or struggling. Things happen simply because of the intention, and the intention can be effortless. There will be some action involved, yes, but it can be from a mind that is in silence. There could be thinking and planning that arises from the silence. So it's a paradox, but actually thinking can come directly from silence, and action also. so that you don't lose your silence. You don't get lost in thought. So a final principle, which is the fifth one, is if you want to keep your mind quiet during action and even planning, disconnect winning or losing from survival. What do I mean by that? Let's say you have a project and you begin to think, if I fail in this project, I may starve. That thought or any concern about your survival will create a strong ego pull that will bring you out of beingness or open, resting as open awareness. Why? Because the I principle in the Indian scriptures has been called the Ahamkara principle, will pull you down into fear and thought. So you need to separate survival and success in any of these games. So that survival is something that you learn to make it only dependable on consciousness itself. The universe, we could say. The universe takes care of your needs. It knows your needs. Obviously, you're part of the universe. And the universe, as long as there is sincerity in doing what is right, or I wouldn't say right, but what you intuitively feel that is your call, the universe will take care of your needs in one way or another. There will always be a way for the universe to take care of your basic needs. Then you can separate what's my survival, the survival of the body, from what you are doing. Yes, the universe may bring you money through what you are doing, could be, but it doesn't need to do it that way. It can do it in different ways. It's very creative and resourceful. So Nisargadatta Maharaj said the following, that it's a beautiful thought and it has been so important in this whole process here in this mind-body organism. He said, your needs are guaranteed. The satisfaction of your fundamental needs is guaranteed. You don't need to worry about it. And then you separate your needs from what you want to do or materialize. Because this urge for survival can destroy your plans and can make you lose the game by bringing you into fear and thought. A vibration that is not a good attractor, metaphysicians would say, right? So summarizing, I'm going to summarize. These are 5 principles, okay? They are very simple. First, learn to do not give up easily. Second, learn to think everything is possible. Third, learn to embrace winning or losing. Fourth, be instead of acting and thinking. In beingness there is much more power. Stay with the mind quiet. Not by fighting the mind, because that's going to create more thought. Just shifting the attention to awareness or beingness. And disconnect everything from survival. Cultivate the thought the universe knows the needs of this mind-body organism. So that's all I have to say tonight about this. These 5 principles, in fact, they are a whole metaphysical approach that is not based on the I. Who learns to do not give up easily? The mind-body organism. You as awareness, you don't need to learn that. As awareness, you know it. Who learns to think everything is possible? The mind-body organism has to learn to do that. Has to have the right program. Who learns to embrace winning or losing? The mind-body organism. You as awareness, you are okay with whatever happens. Who has to disconnect your projects, the different games that you are playing with survival? The mind-body organism, in thinking, believing, feeling. And who has to learn to do not interfere with beingness, with resting as open awareness? The brain has to learn that, and that's part of the mind-body organism. The brain has to learn to stay quiet. But it learns this not by attacking the thinking process, because that's going to create more thinking. It's just that you shift the attention or awareness into itself. You forget thought, you forget sensation, like we were doing during the meditation. So all this learning has to do with the mind-body organism being programmed properly. And these principles work not against your main goal, which is embodiment, meaning staying in the awakened state, or staying in the self, or in the no mind, in the pure awareness 24/7. Why? Because the ego, the mind-body organism, understands that by staying quiet, it can get what it wants. So now the ego comes to even help you to get out of the picture. If you try to play the games of life from thinking that the more thinking you do, the better will be your position to win, then you will find that your brain never stops thinking, because it will obsess with winning the game through thinking. In this way, it will simply want to move to beingness, stay quiet, so that it can win the game, but through your divine nature now, not through thinking. And there is a time for thinking, yes, when you have to plan, right? I'm not saying don't think whatsoever. But ideally, that thinking will be from intuition, will come from the silence, from the wisdom within, so that you will be guided properly. Okay, so now let's go into questions. Those online, I invite you also to send me your questions. So far, I'm getting good access to the chat room, and I can see very clearly your your postings there.
Sleep. I come in and out.
Yeah, I can put people to sleep.
So you're saying when we're planning something,
Yes.
let ourselves be guided by intuition or Holy Spirit or whatever it is, but try to keep our ego and thoughts out of it?
Right. You want to plan, right? To make a good plan. Let's say you're going to do a business. You want to have a business plan, right? But you want also that business plan to come up from intuition, to be so that you will be guided, right, into creating a business plan that will be successful. In that case, you use thinking, planning, right, through thinking, and ideally also writing. You write down your thoughts, you write down your business plan. But thinking in this case is being used as a tool. You grab the tool, you use it. And once you finish using it, you drop it, right? It's not like what happens to human beings, that we tend to use the tool, plan, and then we keep thinking the whole day about what we did. And day after day after day, sometimes months. So we never go into beingness, where our power really lies, because we are completely hypnotized with thought. And if we have the belief that thought is the instrument that we need to succeed, that belief will fire more thinking and will never give you the rest that you need, so that what you really want to happen will come to you naturally without effort, because you will always be grasping it from the thinking level, from the ego level, which has no power or very little, compared with beingness, which is your divine nature. So use thought, make a business plan, make sure it's as much as possible divinely inspired. Then drop the tool, go into beingness. And you will be guided also in the actions that need to be taken. And when the mind wants to come back, you tell the mind, no, beingness is more powerful. Beingness will bring success, not you, not thinking. So thinking has a place, right? This guy that presents this video on this particular point, the point of beingness versus thinking and action, he has an interesting example. He says, and this I know it by experience because I used to play chess. And when you play chess, you can approach that game in two different ways. One way is you make a move to see what happens. It's like curiosity is guiding you, right? Well, I'm going to do this to see what the other do or what will happen. That's a losing way to play, but most people play that way. And the other one is, before you move, you think and you imagine the different scenarios that will happen when if you do this move or that move or that move. You're using thinking now, not just action, not just compulsive action. And of course, you are in a much better position to win the game. So it's a beautiful example. But there is then another level that is even more powerful, which is beingness. And in the games of life, you need to wait a long time until you get the next response from the universe. Let's say, yeah, in a chess play, you make a move, you thought, right? You made a move, and then you probably will not need to wait too much until the other person makes their move. But where would be the best place to rest until the opponent makes their move? Beingness. Because that's where most power comes from, inspiration. So that when it's time for you to think again, your thoughts will be guided by beingness, by consciousness, by pure consciousness. In real life, in the games of life, the situation is even more tricky because you make a move and sometimes you have to wait weeks before you see the results of your move. Let's say I'm going to use this mind-body organism as an example. I have been trying to create a non-profit organization, and it became a very sticky project for different reasons. But every time we answer the questions from the IRS, every time we had to wait 2-3 weeks. During those 2-3 weeks, if you're obsessed with thinking, you think about the different scenarios and it's going to happen, and if it doesn't happen, or you just rest, right, and wait. Well, there is power in resting, enormous power, and there is little power in a stressing with thinking. What's going to happen? And if they say this, then I'm going to do this, and you can think endlessly about different scenarios.
And why is it's almost never, my experience, it's almost never ever what I think it's going to be.
Can you repeat the question, please?
When I do that, I think, oh, this could happen or that could happen. Usually what does happen is nothing I even came into my thoughts.
See, if you begin to play with different scenarios, what if this happens, or what if that happens, and so on, and eventually you see that what happened has nothing to do with most of the scenarios, the what ifs that you played with in your mind, that again is telling you that it was a waste of time, right? And energy, enormous amount of energy, emotional and mental energy, that could be devoted to something better. And in beingness, you don't play with any scenario. You're in a space of trust and calmness, which attracts success. And you're not thinking, I'm doing it. You're not thinking, oh, I'm going to succeed. No, you're not thinking, right? But strangely, it increases the possibilities, the probabilities of success immensely. It's not an absolute guarantee either. There are no absolute guarantees in this world. Whenever you play a game, there are no absolute guarantees. But you're playing with probabilities. And then when you play the game correctly, and after you made your move, you rest as awareness, you increase the probabilities by an order of magnitude. While if you keep thinking and worrying about it, your probability will go down and you exhaust yourself.
That makes perfect sense to me. But then the question comes into my mind. People out there that are in their thoughts and mind all the time, and they're very successful. If you want to think of successful as wealth and money, or having a big business, let's say.
Yes. Okay.
Like they don't believe like we do, I doubt.
Right. So she's saying, what about the people that are great thinkers and they have attained great success? Yes, we see that, right? We see that in individuals like Steve Jobs and so on. Thinkers, right? Intuitive thinkers, by the way. Intuitive thinkers in the Myers-Briggs. They have learned to play the games from thinking and to strategize correctly. And that's why they are more successful than the average Joe, right? But success is a tricky thing because there's no definition of success. There's only a vague level of agreement. If I say Steve Jobs, probably most of you in this room will say successful, right? Because we have like a silent agreement of what success is. But if you begin to look deeper into success versus failure and to try to define success, you will see that you cannot define it. And you cannot even make a statement like that, Steve Jobs was successful. Because he was successful in certain areas, but maybe he was not successful in other areas. Yeah? And then somebody could raise the argument and say, well, you know, he's dead, I'm not, right? So I was more successful because, you know, I lived longer. Obviously, it's an argument. But when you try to pin success into this is success, you never can do that. So many thinkers have attained, relatively speaking, more success than individuals that are reactive, that they respond to life in a reactionary way. They are not thinking enough. They are just responding with doing and doing. To give you an example, I have a friend that his nature, his type, makes him he has a lot of energy, right? So he goes on doing and doing and doing. And that gives him some results. But the tendency he has is reactive. So something happens and he begins to do and do and do to counteract that is happening. So he has been told by different people that his company that he's trying to create, his business, doesn't really have an image, a corporate image. It doesn't have a clear name, it doesn't have a clear branding, there hasn't been any strategy, long-term strategy, right? It's all logistics, just logistics. So thinkers like Steve Jobs, they are capable of using thinking and to do not get caught completely into the logistics. So they use thinking to strategize. And then they create a company like Apple that has, and they put an enormous amount of effort, money, and time into their branding, which is something that is long-term investment, right? So not all the resources and energy is going into logistics, putting off the fires. responding reactively to the situations that are being presented in their business. So successful people, extremely successful people like Steve Jobs or others that have succeeded in the software and computers, they are intuitive thinkers and they are natural strategists, long-term strategists. They are thinking in the long term. That's why they are better prepared to succeed. But there is another level, which is not just thinking, and is beingness or resting as open awareness. And that leads to greater success because the tendency of the thinker is to live an imbalanced life. They will be very good in certain areas, but other areas can be a disaster, right? I don't know Mr. Steve Jobs' relationship life. I have no idea. But I can imagine that his life was one-sided towards his business, and his relationships may have suffered. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. And relationships is a big part of life, right? So beingness can give you a success that is more balanced also, because it comes from within. It doesn't come from the mind and the thinking. And at this moment in the planet, as far as metaphysics has advanced, the people that are doing best in business or materializing things are the thinkers, because very few are really using beingness to attain goals or to play the games of life. Very, very few. What we're discussing today, I'm sure that 0.1% of the population, 1 in 1,000, may understand this, if it's not 1 in 10,000, right? So don't take what I'm saying as true. Think about it intuitively, hopefully, and see if there is some truth in what I have been presenting today, and consider the possibility of playing the games of life from beingness, and thinking when it's necessary, and doing when it's necessary, but fundamentally from beingness. Obviously there will be some thinking, obviously there will be some doing, but the greatest power is in beingness. So spend time in there. Any other question? See, you probably heard this long ago. You use the mind as a tool, right? You grab the mind, you use it, and you drop it. I heard it 30 years ago. But only Advaita has eventually clarified that why you got to do this, why it's so important, so that now your mind itself can cooperate, and every aspect of your being can cooperate with this action of letting go of the mind and just rest. Yes.
I think when you're just being, you're not really playing the ego's game of life. The whole, what you call the game of life changes.
Okay, so Diane is saying when you're in beingness, you're not playing the games of life, right?
It changes.
Right. The games of life change. They change. And I would agree that the games of life change especially when you wake up. When you wake up and you realize that the I was a story and that you are pure awareness, the games of life that you were playing before begin to change. Your goals change. Now you have a more mature point of view to look at your life and see what is really valuable and important and what isn't. So yeah, I agree. Your games change. However, you cannot dispose them completely. You cannot get rid of them completely.
Not as long as you're here.
Not as long as you are in a physical body and in a physical universe. So you're bound by the games. So how are you going to play them?
Just like the millennials now who are into the computers, who are tech savvy, and their thought process in their business, becoming millionaires, getting their cars, buying their properties.
Right.
They're not thinking about bringing a service to someone. They are thinking about the game, how much they can play, how much they can make,
Right.
who's going to win at the end of it with how many toys they have. And it's a sad situation.
All right.
But they do bring the technology in on other businesses, families who start their family businesses are providing a service and trying to provide for their families. So,
Right. So she's saying that the millennials, and I would say not only the millennials, are playing the game of accumulating toys and money and becoming millionaires, yeah, through their skills in computers many times. And yes, this represents a percentage of the population. It may be significant among this group, could be. But let us not forget that the millennials at this time, they are in this phase of life, right? It's kind of a phase of life. I went through the same. I went in my 20s through the same type of things with some changes because I was already into yoga, so I was kind of spiritualizing my ambitions, right? To make money and to create a business, so there was a certain interest in converting this ambition that was, in my case, was I would say exaggerated due to the family that I was born. But there was, since I began at 23 practicing yoga, there was this urgency to spiritualize this ambition, right? And then you can't block that force, because if you block it, it's worse. You need to let it express that greed, so to speak, that ambition. Let it play, but now spiritualizing it means to do it for others, to do it for the sake of helping humanity. So the millennials and also the people that were born during the 90s and even earlier, young people below 30, they have been bitten by many of them by the bug of greed, and this is kind of normal in a world like this. But many of them will outgrow this, and then they will move into a much better place. They will sober up. And let's not forget that in a way, they are the result of this crooked society with values that are so distorted, that program the child very early in life to pursue selfish goals, to prove something, right? And it's totally innocent. See, I remember my father one day called me and said, we are sitting on a gold mine. He had a farm, and the farm was close to Santiago, the capital city of Chile. So this farm, he figured out that he could develop it, right? At some point. The regulations had to change, the zoning. But he was working on that, at changing the regulations. So I was 6 years of age, and he calls me, and he confides to me this interesting secret he had, right? We are sitting on a gold mine, and I make an evaluation, a real estate appraisal, and this farm is worth at least $1 million of that time, and in Chile, right? So his greed for money, which I understand because he had 7 children, so he wanted to, he needed to have a lot of money. But there was also something in the family. His father was very rich, so he wanted, to be like his siblings and his father. But his greed was transferred also to me. And this mind-body organism also began to dream about becoming a millionaire and so on. Very early in life, I began to fantasize about how many millions of dollars I was going to make. So it required a long spiritual work to let go of that desire and to overcome that desire. It was many years. And many of the millennials today and young people in general, they will do okay. They will eventually outgrow this greed, and some will not. Some will get stuck there, and that is really problematic. When a guy is already 40 and 50, and they keep trying to make it, and make it means to make millions of dollars, and then when they cannot make it, they resort to dirty tricks, dirty moves to make it. Or they become depressed and lose their spirit because they are living a normal life. They have everything they need, but they don't have the $1 million house in the hill, right?
They give up.
So they give up and they go into depression. That is more serious. What happens, in the late 30s and 40s and so on. So just to give you an idea of how much this can be dissolved, this greed, this initial greedy drive of the young people can be overcome. at some point, I was already working in psychotherapy. I was not making that much money. You don't make much money in psychotherapy. In fact, in order to sustain the work that I was doing, I had to use other resources that I had, but I was feeling helpful to others. I was helping other people. And then I went to Chile, and I had entered a business with a relative there. And the business was doing really well, really, really well. So at that moment, I felt the temptation to stay there, right? Give up psychology and psychotherapy, which was making me feel very fulfilled, not at the money level, but yes, internally. And but over there, the possibilities of making a lot of money and working in some interesting projects was very real. So I became conflicted with these two choices. And that evening I had to meditate, because at that time I was into meditation and regular meditation, you know. So I had heard from a yogi that your vocation is something that you bring from previous lifetimes. You have done a particular type of activity. You have done it over and over and over for incarnations. So you're very familiar with that activity. That activity is your vocation, whether it is a healer or a teacher or an engineer or whatever, right? So you have a vocation already. You don't need to invent a vocation. So that, in that occasion, after meditating, when the mind was quiet, and here is an example of the importance of a quiet mind, right? Because you get intuitive thoughts that can guide you in a difficult situation. So the state of beingness had come at the end of the meditation to some degree. And then I asked the question, what is my vocation at the level of the soul, right? And the answer that came was completely disconcerting. It was not anything that I expected. Because I had been an engineer, I had been a businessman or entrepreneur, I had been a psychotherapist. So I was expecting something of the things that I had done. And the answer that came was, you're a teacher. And to add to my confusion, teachers in Chile is like a lower kind of profession, right? So my program about being a teacher is a low type of profession, right? So I said, a teacher? So anyway, I finished my meditation and sat down, and I began to ponder on this thought and where it was coming from. And then I realized that I had been teaching for many years. Because when I was in engineering, when I was studying engineering, I was teaching mathematics to people that were in other professions that had a lower level of mathematics. So I was teaching mathematics to architects. Then when I came here, I was teaching Spanish for some time in the LA Unified School System. Then for some time I taught descriptive geometry, which is another subject related to architecture. Then the approach I had in psychotherapy, although it was one-on-one, it was not to a group, but it was very psychoeducational. I was trying to help my client to understand life a little bit more, right? And I was working with people that were, I would say, somewhat basic, that they didn't have much preparation at school, so they didn't have they had deficits in their basic understanding of life. So I was spending a lot of time in psychotherapy doing psychoeducation, teaching them about the mind and their thoughts and their feelings, and I was really enjoying that. So I realized that yes, I had always been teaching in one way or another, and always with some level of success. So at that moment, I had the option to follow my heart or my vocation, or to stay in Chile and make a lot of money, right? But the drive for money and greed and success and recognition of society and attaining the next toy and the house in the hills and so on had already been exhausted. So it was easy to make the decision. And I left Chile and I came back. And then the business that I had there was lost. Because not being there created certain problems among the partnership that eventually brought the business down. And the money was lost. But I have never felt that, oh man, I lost so much money. And I'm talking a lot of money. Because our vocation, what we're doing, what we really love in life, has no price. And many of these, and this is the reason why in these millennial young people and others, that were born in the 90s, this desire for money and toys and so on will get exhausted very fast. It's because in the 30s you realize, or earlier, you realize that you need to follow your passion in life, that you cannot go for the money. Most people that are somewhat mature, those who are not, they will suffer lots of pain and disappointments. So they will look in their 30s for a profession that is closer to their heart. They will begin to listen to their heart, not to their wallet, or to the opinion of others, or to their external success. More questions?
I was going to say, what about the millennials that, like my son who's 23, doesn't really want to work, doesn't really care?
Your son is 23 and he doesn't care, he doesn't want to work?
I mean, he graduated college, and he goes, I know I'm going to work one day, but I'm not in a rush. And I don't blame him.
What he graduated from?
Cal State Long Beach as a percussion major.
As a what?
Percussion, drumming.
Oh, drumming. Percussion. Okay.
But I understand that.
He's a musician then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we see musicians.
But I know a lot of kids from different states, whatever, that are less to work.
Yeah, right.
So the opposite to what you're saying, I know that's true, but there's the ones that are like,
yeah, some will have too little drive, right? So in those cases, when there is too little drive, too little ambition, I would say that parents, need to push them a little bit, push them out to life, so that they can face the need to take responsibility for their lives and to make a living. That will awaken in them the urgency to do something that will be helpful to themselves and others. So your son, in your case, your son has chosen obviously something that is vocational, because being a drummer is not something that and a musician is not something that you choose to make money, right? You choose because you love it, right? So that's a very good thing. He's in a very good place. Now he needs a little bit of a push, probably, to find a way to make a living with his vocation. He may need also a little help, because being an artist and making a living with your art is quite challenging, right? But between pushing him to face life and supporting him at the same time, he will likely find his way.
There's a young man in Bakersfield who is 8 years old, and he wrote a program for a video game. And he is now a multi-millionaire.
He's 8 years old?
8 years old.
Okay.
Doesn't do well in school,
Uh-huh.
but
He's a genius
he's a
in
genius when it comes
in
to
computers.
video games, and was able to piece together all these games that he's played.
right.
And I guess he's able to see mistakes and errors,
Mm-hmm.
and so he wrote his own.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, a case like that, is a scenario that doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. These kids, millionaire at 8 years of age is something very unique. But how that situation is going to impact his personality, it's, I don't know. It's probably an experiment that consciousness is doing.
well, his
So-
parents are very grounded, and the money has been put aside. They do live on it because they are not middle class. They are less than middle class,
yes.
but they're not moving up, in
Yeah.
the city. They are just making their lives better.
That probably will help
Yeah.
if the
So
parents,
they'll keep him
take
grounded. Yeah.
take
Yeah. His mom tells
a
him,
moderate approach to this.
she tells him if he gets out of hand, she says, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. So
Right.
he's a good kid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Also, when you see geniuses in a particular area, like in this case, often you see deficiencies in others, right? A typical case is the genius in computers that relates very well with the computer and machines, but has difficulties to relate to human beings, so has relationship issues. And often these individuals are diagnosed with Asperger disorder, right? So they are geniuses in a particular area, but not. And that is maybe the case of this child, or maybe not. Okay, let me see. There are some questions here. Mamatha, she's saying how to clearly differentiate between thought coming from intuition versus regular thinking. Yes, thoughts either come from intuition or they come from memory, from your programs, right? They are connections that you do between thoughts that are already in the memory, or they are thoughts that are absolutely in the memory and they just come forward. So think of the mind-body organism as a computer that has been programmed and has a hard drive, and the memory is the hard drive. So you can retrieve a thought from the hard drive, and also you can retrieve 2 or 3 thoughts from the hard drive and then make connections among those thoughts. And that's what artificial intelligence does, in fact. And so in a way, the mind-body organism is like a robot. It doesn't, up to that point, it doesn't make, it doesn't have any difference with an artificial intelligence robot. But our real difference, the real difference between a human being and a robot, is that we human beings can connect with consciousness. And we can draw from the infinite database that is part of consciousness, that has played unlimited numbers of roles in this universe and accumulated all the wisdom of how to play in a universe like this through trillions or quadrillions of beings. And all that is stored in the memory of consciousness. So consciousness, you can connect with that super computer, so to speak, that is not even limited by those memories. And you can draw, you as a human being, you can draw from consciousness thoughts that you never thought before. And we all have had the experience, right? We all have had the experience to having a thought that we never thought before, we never heard before, we never had any contact with that thought. It's totally new for you. Where it comes from is an intuitive thought. Or another possibility is we have a thought that is, it cuts through a situation and it shows you immediately the perfect option, the perfect course of action in a particular situation. So how can we differentiate between thoughts that are coming from our memory database here in the brain and the thoughts that come from consciousness? You can summon these thoughts to begin with by asking a question and making silence. That's the easiest way. You ask a question to the divine and you make silence and you wait for the answer to come, right? The first thought is usually the right one. The second thought is the enemy, it's called, right? So it's the false one. So if the thought sounds to you like completely new or unusually creative, unusually precise to solve a situation, healing to your mind-body system, like, oh, this gives me a perspective that immediately feels good, feels healthy. You can be sure that you have drawn from consciousness. So that thought, we say in psychology, is an intuitive thought. But actually, a better word than intuition is a thought that is coming from consciousness itself. So I hope this answers your question, Namada. The difference between thoughts from thinking and thoughts from intuition. Thoughts that come from regular thinking, from the brain, they will feel like stale and flat and many times uninterested, boring, just like, like a fog, enticing many times, useless most of the time. It's like a trance. Repetitive. It's like a trance where we are seeing this movie all the time. We get lost, consciousness gets lost in thought. It follows this stream of thought, endless stream of stupid thoughts that don't lead anywhere. A thought that is intuitive is really alive, is really valuable, is really life transforming. So even thought, we cannot say that is negative in itself. There are intuitive thoughts that can be very valuable. Same happens with intuitive feelings. Like for example, you can have a feeling, a desire for something that is completely aligned with consciousness, with the divine plan, so to speak, for the universe. Or you can have a desire that is completely misaligned and completely binding and corrupted and even damaging for your mind-body organism. You can have both. So feeling and thought are not necessarily bad or good. It depends. And what comes from beyond the little me and this mind-body organism, the thoughts and feelings that are coming from consciousness itself, they are called intuitive thoughts and intuitive feelings.
So intuition is a part of consciousness.
Intuition is what?
A part of consciousness.
Yeah, intuition is the word that we use to refer to that thoughts and feelings that are coming directly from consciousness, or they are like a download into our brain, right? Or into our feelings in the emotional body. Whenever we say I had an intuition, it means I had an intuitive thought or I had an intuitive feeling, meaning I had a download that came directly from consciousness in the form of a thought or a feeling. Any other question?
Is it right to believe in a divine being, a divine consciousness, a God?
Sorry? I didn't understand.
Does Advaita believe in God, in a divine being?
Oh,
Higher power?
right. So, Diane is asking if in Advaita, non-duality, there is a belief in God or a higher power. And the answer is no. There is in the beginning is a belief, you want to realize it, right? The belief that everything is oneness. Everything is the divine. Not that the divine is separated over there as a being, and then here you are as a human, and there is a relationship between God and me. That is Bhakti Yoga, and that is Advaita says, no, that's not the truth. The truth is the divine is everything, right? So, and you want to realize that. So in the beginning, it may be a belief in the seeker that is seeking through the path of non-duality, because he or she hears the teachers saying there is just one, right? Not two. There is just the self. Everything is the self. This is said in different ways, right? Everything is the self. And then at some point, this becomes a realization, right? It's realized. And Advaita will use pointers, thoughts, that point to this realization, that everything is the self. And in fact, everything is the self is a pointer, right? It's pointing to that. However, when we say that you receive an intuitive thought or a thought directly coming from consciousness, is to transform that in more non-dual terms, we could say that the mind-body system has a certain autonomy and is a semi-autonomous system. Up to a point, it has, that's what the scriptures mean by is made in the image of God. It has its own memory bank. It has its own programs. It has its own mechanism of action. It has its own impulses. It has its own emotions. So it's a kind of semi-autonomous apparatus. But this autonomy is also an illusion. Ultimately, the programming of the mind-body organism as a semi-autonomous system is also controlled by the ultimate, by the universe. So every little semi-autonomous being is actually the result of the universe unfolding. The universe is unfolding in a particular way into each one of us, for so to speak. We are the result of an unfolding, and that unfolding is not controlled by you. It's controlled by the universe.
By the universe?
Yes.
So what is the universe?
The totality, right? Universe, uni, one, right? The one. The totality, the self, the totality, the self with a capital S, is unfolding. Itself is unfolding automatically. Yeah, and we have no control over that. We imagine that we have control, but when you realize during awakening that the I was a story in the head, then who has been controlling my progress, right? Who has been controlling my evolution? There is no I there to control anything. So it has been happening. All your story, your storyline that you call my storyline, has actually evolving by itself, we could say, or as a result of the unfoldment of the universe. Every little story in the big story is an automatic unfolding too of the big story. It's like in a play, you don't have autonomous actors. You have one person that created the script, and then each one of the actors seems to be independent, but it's a seeming thing. They have memorized their part. They are doing their part. We don't need to memorize our part. The universe makes sure that you do your part. What else?
Does Evita believe that you need to meditate to awaken?
The question is if you need to meditate to awaken. The answer is yes and no. If you understand meditation for the regular formal concept of meditation, which is that you cross your legs and you meditate in the morning, and you pray first, then you chant, then you close your eyes and you practice a concentration technique, and then you practice meditation. No, it's not like that. That is a story of the teachers that promote that type of meditation, and will sell you some initiations into meditation techniques. Some, with good intentions, some are making money with that. I'm not saying that everybody is, into just greed, but it's selling the idea to the public that you got to every day meditate in the morning, at night, and cross your legs or sit in a sitting position with your spine erect, chin parallel to the floor, and almost like a military position. It's damaging for the seeker. Much more interesting, and I would say much more valuable, although there are exceptions. There are people that they really feel very connected with that particular formal meditation. But at least for the experience here, much more interesting is informal meditation, which is that you bring meditation to your everyday life. You learn to rest as awareness. Once you get a feel of what it means, right? Once you got that first recognition, oh, this is what rest as awareness means. Or as Ramana Maharshi called it, abide as the self. So when you get a feel of that, yeah, what it means to rest as open awareness, then it becomes easier and easier to go there. And it takes a second. It doesn't take 2 seconds. Actually, it can take half a second to do it, right? So you can rest as awareness anytime. You're driving and you're somewhat resting as awareness. You're in a meeting and you are somewhat resting as awareness. You are walking, having a walk, and you can rest as open awareness and feel the spaciousness. And especially in open spaces. Let's say you're having a walk on the beach, and which is very expansive. It's very easy. You go into this informal meditation, and you are walking on the beach. So the advantage of this is that you don't separate meditation from your everyday life, so that all the effort is to incorporate meditation immediately into your everyday life, and not having your life compartmentalized into my meditation and spiritual life and my life, which is eventually it creates problems. It backfires, because I have seen individuals that they go into the room, they close their door, and then they come out, in bliss, and they're feeling great, and it's very easy to get along with them. Then they sit in front of the computer and they become devils in 10 minutes, right? And they go into emotional reactions and reactivity, and then they totally lose their peace of mind. So they have been doing this for such a long time, separating their spiritual life from their everyday life, that they have no clue on how to bring that peace and that meditation into their everyday life. So yes, I would say that informal meditation included in your everyday life is superior, and it's more effective, and it's easier also. Even if you have a restless mind, you can do it. The minute you begin to feel how to get there, how to rest as awareness, even if it's for a second, you got the key to heaven. You say, okay, here it is. Now I know what to do. More of this. Any other questions? Those online, do you have more questions? I also want to make clear that eventually thought comes from the silence, and it doesn't. It kind of does not disturb the silence. Of course, it's thoughts. The thoughts in that situation are moving slowly. They are not compulsive, rapid firing thoughts. But an action can spring from the silence. And that can be realized. Jean Klein was a non-dual teacher, a French man that died some years ago. And if you go to Santa Barbara, there is in one of the beach there, I think is Estero Burro Beach, there is a bench, and in that bench there are the words of this teacher that are in a plaque, and the words are, everything comes from the silence and goes back to silence. So we need to realize that thought can come from the silence. Words also. To be able to teach in this field, in non-duality, to some degree, you need to allow the words to come from the silence, because that's where they are coming from intuition. They are not being filtered by the mind. Right? So it's strange in the beginning to perceive this and to notice that the words are coming directly from the silence, but there's nothing mysterious about it. It's just that you're not filtering, you're not thinking first, oh, will they like what I'm going to say? Right? However, consciousness is very appropriate, so it's not going to make you, it's not going to embarrass you. It's not going to embarrass the teacher, saying stupid things. And this, I think the insistence on this element that thought and feelings have value is because in some teachings, thought, the mind have been demonized, right? It's like the enemy. Stay silent, just being, no thinking. And it's not black and white. There is thought that is not damaging. It can be inspiring, it can be funny. Yeah, Diane likes that part, that actually the spiritual life makes you see everything as funny. And but that funny, it many times happens because a thought comes that makes you laugh, right? And it's like a joke that you hear internally. So it's very important to do not demonize thought or demonize feeling, but at the same time, we could say that, and there is a place for this thought, yeah? And the thought is, you are always in, you're either in two places in life. You are resting as open awareness, or you are lost in thought. So sometimes, let's say you make a phone call to a friend and they will ask you, oh, where are you? Well, there are only two possibilities. You are either lost in thought or resting as awareness. You're not in San Diego or Santa Barbara or San Francisco. No. These are the two places where you can be, where consciousness can be. Lost in thought or awakened to itself. So the mind is the problem, yes, the mind is the problem. But the mind also has, there is a part of the mind that can be useful and funny and enjoyable and will not interfere with your divine state. But that compulsive thinking, the compulsive thinking that goes nowhere and is just worrying and thinking about me and my ideas and this, that thing, that mind, is called the lower mind, by the way. That lower mind, that's the problem. The other mind, the mind that gives you intuitive guidance, makes you laugh, and has good humor, and it comes from consciousness, that higher mind, that's not a problem. Okay, I think we have been 2 hours here, so let's call it a day, and thank you those online for coming and participating. Thank you for coming too. It has been really enjoyable, and hope to see you next week. You will probably be able to get the video, this video, in the channel Satsang with Jan. An unfortunate name, but anyway. I also would like to take a moment to say that for those interested in the course in Psychology of Consciousness, which is directed to trigger the awakening in the first 2 sessions and then working on embodiment. It is in a super discount, a Black Friday is called? Yeah, Black Friday price. So usually the price of this course is $4,000, and now it's been offered for $1,500 if it's paid in advance. So it's a terrific price, and we will maintain this until the 24th of December. So it would be nice to work with some of you. Take care, and have a good night.
see what's gonna. Gotta be